Good morning to Linda and Andre. Good to see y'all this morning, or to know y'all are there. I don't see you, but to know y'all are there. Good morning.
Oh, good, Liz on there. Hi, Linda.
So let's regroup here. Because if I can't advance anywhere, then I can't show you some of the things. I can't play some of the music. So that means that we're going to have a good chit chat this morning. So I'm going to sit down and we're going to do what we should always do when there's mayhem in the room, or at least within me. That is, let's pray. So as we inhale and exhale, we relax. Relaxing the body. Letting that tension just flow away. The muscles, all that energy in the system that is the body just eases and becomes comfort. And we recognize and know that as we open to the divine that is present in all, everywhere, everything, and that power and that presence of the divine that is the universe itself, we know that as God is all, we are made in that image of all, because we're made in the image of God. Thus, I am too that power and that presence. We are too that power and presence. And all that is contained there is contained within us. The beauty, the magnificence, the strength, the love. All that we can comprehend is here, now, as us. And we recognize this is for the world too. Every living being and every creature, every plant, every inert object that we can imagine is too that presence and power. And we're all connected. And as that connection, awareness grows and deepens, that we love and value and appreciate humanity, the people that are humanity, but the creatures upon our planet, the fauna upon our planet, and the planet itself. And know that we hold and embrace and love. We are loving love. And we allow that to spread not only from this room, from this country, from this continent, from this hemisphere, but through this entire planet. We recognize and we celebrate this. And we appreciate that we have the place to come to celebrate this. And there are people to celebrate it with. And we say thank you. Thank you for your willingness to show up here on Sunday morning. And thank you for your willingness to be a part of that love, loving love. And so it is. Amen. So, what do y'all pray for?
Health.
Health, well-being. What else? God's
Will of spirit, yeah.
will of spirit, God's will.
Just to have a nice, peaceful, easy feeling inside.
Peaceful, easy feeling. That's an Eagles song, Ken. Peaceful, easy feeling inside. Yes. That's relaxing and release. You know, what I want to share this morning is just about that. It's about relaxing and release. And that whatever we pray for, You know, the first part of affirmative prayer is relaxing. It's relaxation, that we relax. And that relax and release is really about letting go. Letting go of what's being held in the body, but letting go about what's being held typically right here for us. And this week, you know, sometimes you have those weeks where you just have conversations and you just have great clarity after the conversation, or at least at the end of the conversation, but not at the start. And so many of my conversations this week on both sides of the fence, meaning those I was listening to and those I was sharing, you know, the sharing I was doing, I could recognize that there was a situation that was taking place, that was happening in the last few days, this week, kind of scenario. But the experience of it wasn't happening yesterday, this week. The experience of it was coming from days long past, from past ideas, past beliefs, past thoughts, past hurts. That old baggage was being drugged into the present situation. So the confusion becomes, is it really happening in this present situation? Or is it me projecting?
Something's happened to me.
Well, the birds of a feather flock together, Ken. Ken said it was happening to him too.
That's good.
Well, it's an awareness, because in that awareness of recognizing that I'm bringing something old into the new, into the now for me. And by doing that, I'm bringing that baggage forward, and that baggage, we want to release that, don't we? Because doesn't that baggage influence and shadow how I'm looking at the world, how I'm interacting with people, how I'm projecting onto you something that I'm believing, thinking that you're doing it. Now the question might be, are you doing it? Maybe you're doing it, and maybe you're not doing it at all. I'm just projecting it onto you.
Lessons from the past. What have we learned from the past? And now we reflect back on that, and we learn anything from that experience there to now.
You're right. Why do we carry those things forward? Well, we used to carry them on because there was a hurt, there was an injury, something I feel like I was wounded by, and then there's an opportunity for learning from that, from growing from that, having an experience in which you change and transform from that. Yet, we're still on this planet, so we're still learning this. The potential of us carrying our baggage forward is still there. It doesn't matter how much we've healed and done in other things, there's probably something else that we can discover if we bother to look for it. And I think that for us to really have a happy life, a joyous life, a life in which we feel like we're living as spirit in the world, that we must learn to release the things, release the people, release the thoughts that we have. Now, relax and release, the Latin root of those comes from the word lex aure, for those of you that are fine Latin speakers, which means to loosen. And also from the Latin, that re, that re means back or again. So basically, relax and release are almost the same meaning from the Latin roots, which just means to, again, to loosen for us. And relax, actually, according to Webster, means to make or become looser or less firm, tense. And release means to be set free. So both of those are implying that we let go, but relax is implying that we're loosening our bodies. Relaxing is about letting the body go, letting it be at ease. Where release is about releasing those things, those situations, those ideas, those thoughts, beliefs, those whatever we perceive is something that we're holding on to in life, which can be what? It can be people, it can be situations, it can be items, my cherished thing I love that I wouldn't let go of, and thus now impacts me so that I can't relax and release to be in that presence of the divine, of that divine that's present here, right? You know, Jesus is credited with saying, "Come unto me and I will give you rest." So he talked about this idea of letting go, of rest. And we even see it in the Hebrew scripture, because relax didn't even show up in the Bible. Release is only a few times. Letting go is there lots of times. Lots of times. And one of them is in the Hebrew Bible, and it's the under Moses' law. You know, Moses had lots of law, lots of rules, regulations. But one of them was this idea of releasing and the spiritual release. And that every 7 years they did a release. And the release was they would forgive debts and they would do a spiritual cleanse in which they acknowledge that no one owed them anything. And if no one owed them anything, hear that, then they don't have an expectation. They aren't projecting onto you that you have to be a certain way. You have to give me something. So no one owed them. We also see that this idea of letting go happens. Some of you remember the story of Lot? Lot and his wife and his family are going to Sodom and Gomorrah. And he gets to Sodom and Gomorrah, and the people there are not living as their Christ within. They're not living as in God, as God. And sometimes this story is used to attack people for their sexual orientation. But we got to remember, there are some factual things in the Bible, but the stories of the Bible are for us. They're for me, they're for you, they're for us to be able to take the story and make something relevant to us in our lives. So it's about us. So here's Lot, his family. He decides that they've come to Sodom and Gomorrah, they're going to leave. And anybody who wants to come with them can leave. And if you think about this metaphysically, they're leaving those that aren't in God, and they're moving toward their Christ within. So they're moving forward. Yet, Lot's wife does what?
She looks back.
She looks back. She looks back to the past, and she becomes this crystallized pillar of salt, this fossil. In other words, she gets stuck in the past so that she can't do what? She can't move forward into her Christ self. So I love that story in that it's a great image of that when we look back, just like that pillar of salt, that there's a rigidity, that there's a hardness that happens for us. And in that hardness, then all we can be is in the hardness, which is the connection to the past. And we can't move into our spiritual awareness of the Christ within, our own divine self. So, it's another story. This one is when Jesus Christ is before Pontius Pilate. Lots of dialogue goes on there. But in that story, something that isn't always clear is that under Roman authority, during Passover, a Roman leader would typically forgive someone, would forgive a Jew of their crimes and let them go free. So Pontius Pilate had that opportunity to release Jesus Christ. He could have been that Jew that got released. But the people, the people of the crowd there didn't call for Jesus. They called for Barabbas. And Barabbas, metaphysically, from Charles Fillmore, our co-founder of the Unity Movement, in his Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, Barabbas means the adverse consciousness, which is rebellion and hatred, to which one gives oneself when one allows oneself to oppose Christ. So, it's the rebellion and hatred to which one gives oneself when you oppose your Christ within. Because it's often, as crowds do, it's often easier to be in that rebellious, that angry side of us. It's easier to default to that than it is to come back to our Christ self. Not that we can't, but by its nature, especially before we start to become aware of it, it becomes real easy just to get caught up in, you did me wrong, okay? And thus now I'm angry, I'm kicked, and I'm going to rebel, I'm going to push back, I'm going to push against you and push against the world. Anybody that I perceive is involved in that wrong that I was done, I think was done to me. So when we're learning to not be in that Barabbas consciousness, then we're learning really to release that idea of rebelling, that idea of wound. There's a relaxation and a release that takes place. So we're letting go. And Charles Fillmore also says that letting go is the erasing from consciousness thoughts contrary to truth. And that this is done by denial. And denial is the mental process of erasing from consciousness the false beliefs of the sense mind, of our conscious thinking mind. Denial clears away belief in evil as reality and makes room for the establishing of truth. So denial is really us erasing the consciousness of false consciousness, of flawed beliefs. So, and I think, y'all remember this, we take on all kinds of beliefs. We learn things from our parents, we learn those things from our surroundings. We have experiences that we interpret, and we take that belief and now we believe that to be the fact. Okay? But it's really just a belief. But also our race consciousness has beliefs. And those are beliefs that don't necessarily seem to have shown up maybe directly in our lives, but still are impacting our beliefs. And as we move forward, we're cleansing those beliefs. And we're cleansing it, which means letting go, by using denials is one of our ways. And denial is think of this, denial is a relinquishment. So it's a letting go, but it's done not vehemently. Vehemently is, doggone it, it's done. But denials are done easy, just like if you've got cobwebs. You don't take a sledgehammer to get rid of your cobwebs. You just lightly brush them away, remove them. And then your affirmations are done with intensity, with certainty. They're done with that vehemence. I'm claiming this. Where the denial is easy. So in some ways, the way to think of that is, I'm not giving that denial and that topic of that denial more energy by giving it intensity. Of which, this is where I struggle with this. Because part of me, I know y'all don't know this about me, Russ wants to be right. I want to be right, and I want to make sure that what I think and believe is what the world thinks and believes. Of course, the world doesn't quite look at it that way. And I struggle with that in that when it comes to denials, boy, when I'm holding on to my beliefs, I think of myself, oh, this is telling. I think of myself as this warrior, and I've got my sword, and I'm doing the battle, and I got my beliefs, and I need to defend and do battle so to make sure that you know what my belief is and that you believe my belief, right? That I'm the warrior defending that. That intensity I want to take into my denials. I've got an intensity with it. So part of my struggle with my denials is being able to recognize that I feel and experience the denial. I know what my denial is about without getting caught up in, boy, I'm going to pull my sword and do some whooping on some denial stuff here. Right? Also for me, these denials really go hand in hand with something else for us. And it's a topic that we touch on a little in unity, but we don't seem to bring it forth with the intensity that I think that it deserves. Because there's something that, remember, David is who is credited with writing the Psalms. And the Psalms are songs. They were to be sung. And one of the songs he sang was, "Commit your way to the Lord, trust in Him, and He will act." So if we take out the male gender there, it's commit your way to the Christ within. Trust the Christ within. And the Christ within will act. And I find that statement is kind of interesting because how many of us think about our Christ within acting? We think that it's just kind of in there hanging out often, right? And that we are the ones doing. But where we want to get to is that place where our connection to the Christ within is what originates our thoughts, but also originates how and where we take action for us. So this idea from David is that you're committing, and that committing is really a surrender piece. And we sometimes balk at surrender because surrender implies that I'm giving up my power, that I'm being obedient to something else. And we don't like that, giving up our power, and we don't want to be obedient to nobody. At least Russ thinks that. That's what arises within me. But the commitment is about that some ways that classic Christian terminology. It's surrendering to God, being saved in that Christ nature, of which we move away from that terminology within unity, but that idea and that concept is still there. We're surrendering into the strength and power that is us, and which means that we're not doing our best to align with that part of us that is intent on being separate, that struggles every day to be separate from that truth of who we are, that Christ within. So that commitment is really a surrender piece, a surrender into the power and the truth of who we are. And surrender is actually not a weakening place, but a power-inducing place for us. So, if we embrace and attain our divine self, then we also can look at human beings and recognize that that Christ within that I'm claiming is the same Christ within that is within everyone else, that is the world that I'm in. And in doing that, I can start to recognize, do I cut off that Christ within when I look at you and have resentment, that I judge you, you've done something wrong in my world, then I'm telling you that you're wrong. That's the Christ within isn't being acknowledged by me. I've severed those ties between you and me. I've made you distinct and separate and void of the Christ within that I'm aspiring to be consciously connected to and living in and as and through. So in that connection, I'm actually severing not just that connection between you and me, that Christ awareness between you and me. If I'm severing it this way, then I'm severing it here because I'm denying it. I've created an unhealthy denial in this case. I'm making it so that I now am separate from the one thing that I'm saying I want to be committed to. So part of the practice is recognizing the divine that I see in every face, the Christ within in every being. Not a new concept, but maybe a new recognition of that there's an energy that takes place when I connect with you. There's a flow that happens. It's happening all along, but when I do my best to stay in my you ain't right mode, then I'm severing that connection by putting a barrier up. My past has helped to produce my pillar of salt that doesn't allow this movement of relationship, of connection to take place. So, that's one of the immutable laws, is that love is present here now. Love, divine mind, Christ within, however we want to phrase that and use terminology we want to use. We are in that law. And being a law, we can't be free from that law. It's just law. And the law is that we're that love. And that when we're hanging on, when we're dragging that baggage, then we can't be experiencing the love, the truth that's here now. So, the things we've talked about here. We've talked about relax. What's relax mean? It means to relax the body. And to release. What are you releasing?
Let go.
You're letting go. You're releasing the people, the thoughts, the situations, whatever it is that I'm holding on to that says, doggone it, this is the way it's got to be. And then part of that release is what? Denials. How do we create a denial? Do I just say, you know what? I have nothing in this world, so I'm going to deny that I have nothing in this world. Does that work? And if not, why doesn't it work? Well, it works because it doesn't work because I'm denying something that's actually the experience I'm in, and I believe I'm in that experience. So for me to try to deny it, I recognize in my own little head, well, that's BS. That's a lie. I'm in lack. So the way we create denials is we can use the lack one. I think about this way. Doggone it, Russ hasn't made $1 billion yet in his life. Well, terrible Russ, I haven't made my billion. I'm in such lack because I haven't made my billion. Now I could deny that I'm in lack and say I have $1 billion, but I don't have that $1 billion. I don't believe I have that $1 billion. So the way to approach that idea of lack in this situation is I deny that lack power over me. So in reality, I truly may have nothing, and I may have an experience that I feel like I'm in lack, but I'm denying that that has power over me. I'm denying the experience. I'm denying the situation. I'm denying it power to be able to impact me and influence me in a derogatory, in a negative way. So I deny lack power over me, and I cast this burden of lack to the Christ within. I don't have $1 billion. Is that a burden to me? No. It's not a burden to me. I don't have $1 billion. There's nothing about that that's a burden to me. But my belief and my angst and whoa, poor pitiful Russ is the burden of that lack of not having $1 billion. So I'm casting this burden of lack to the Christ within. This is letting go and letting God. This is the release of whatever's in our life and allowing the one thing in our life and our experience that knows what to do with it because it can see it clearly, right? Can our Christ within see the truth because it is the truth and can take whatever we hand to it and do whatever needs to be done with it, which in most cases is nothing because it was false. It was simply our belief. But we turn that over. We let go and let God. And the way we do that is I cast this burden of resentment on the Christ within. And then I affirm. And I go free to have plenty. So I don't affirm that I got $1 billion. I affirm something that feels tangible and powerful for me. In me, I go free to have plenty. Well, that means I can have plenty, but also I go free to have plenty. That to me also implies that plenty's here. So I'm free to have that plenty. I may be still caught up in, I don't think I got that plenty. I can fall on that side of the wagon, off that wagon on that side of the fence. But that idea of I go free and have plenty for me actually conjures up that expansiveness, that ability for me to feel that I'm in that place and continuing to move in that place. So, denial is I deny it power over me, and I release it by casting the burden of that onto the Christ within, and then I affirm. I go free, and I go free, and maybe it's I go free, I go freely, I go lovingly, I go enthusiastically, I go in a way that helps me affirm a state of being that allow me to have whatever I might want in my life, whether it's I want a relationship, I want a possession, I want money, I want love, I want, whatever that is that arises, that desire within me. So that's the denials. So we've had the relax, the release, the denial, and now it's the claiming. And what are we claiming?
Prosperity, abundance.
And what's the bigger picture of that we're claiming? Yes.
Christ consciousness.
Our Christ consciousness, the Christ within. So we're claiming that. You know, I don't know if any of you, maybe Travis experienced this. Used to do dynamic meditation, Osho's dynamic meditation. Matter of fact, we used to do it right here in this room. And Osho's dynamic meditation is anything but a silent, still, very quiet meditation. It's lots of movement and lots of noise. It's incredibly loud. And one of those pieces of that meditation is that you do who, and you're bouncing on your heels. And when I used to do it, who is H-U. That's a name of God. You were calling and claiming that who, that God. And you were pulling it in. You know, as I moved further into unity, I began to realize, well, I don't need to pull it in because it's already here. But what I'm doing still in that practice is that I'm claiming it. I'm claiming God, and I'm doing it enthusiastically, vehemently. I've got excitement and intensity, and I'm using my body, and I'm using my words, my voice, my thoughts, all that are together to claim who I am. I'm not doing it gently in this world. And I think that so much of when we read in the mystics, some of the great mystics that write, they talk about surrender, and they talk about that passion that's alive within them. And that surrendering into the Christ consciousness, but there's a passion that happens with them. They don't go gently into the night. They claim it. There's an intensity that happens with it. So with our relaxation, with our release, with our denials, then there becomes a claiming of who we are, and doing it not just in that very quiet way, but that intense way. And when we do that, we do what? We surrender into the truth of who we are. We embrace it, and we become what we already are, but we experience, we live it. The last thought as I close here. You do know that not only does that Christ within act, but that Christ within is expressing. So that Christ within has a voice, has a feeling nature. When you hear, whether it's those words that we sometimes go, shh, I don't want to be hearing nothing in my head. Right? We hear those words, we have those thoughts, we have that sense of knowing, we have that body sensation that tells us something is good or doesn't seem to be so good. All of that is that Christ within communicating, expressing as us. It has a life. So we sometimes, I think, because I did this for most of my adult life, I believe that everything happened here. But everything happens here, it just gets interpreted here for us. So you're claiming that Christ self, that Christ nature allows you to really have a connection with something that expresses and is alive within you. And it can be practiced so that it is experienced to more depth. And if it's not being experienced to the depth you want, that's okay. You can get more. It just takes that practice. And what are those practices? Relax, release, letting go, yes, but it's relax, it's release, it's denial, it's claiming and surrender. So your words for this week to take with you are just relax, release, denial, claim, surrender. Relax, release, denial, claim, surrender. And with that, why don't we do a little relaxing and releasing? So if you'll join me here, if you'd like to just settle in, close your eyes. Just as we started with prayer, take a good breath in and let that breath go. And as you let that breath go, just let your body relax. Let your shoulders sag. Let your toes relax, your calves, your thighs. Each breath, just relaxing more, letting that tension dissipate. Moving through your abdomen, your chest, your shoulders, your arms, your neck, your face, your forehead, your scalp. Each breath just relaxing, allowing that tension, whatever the tightness may be, to just gently move away, dissipate out. And as we sit here, maybe just simply following our breath, that rise and fall of our breath, the chest expanding and collapsing. Our tummy expanding and drawing back in. There may be here a distraction, a thought, a concern, a to-do list. Whatever rises, we're just going to acknowledge it. And we're going to let it move past. Just like the clouds in the sky, slowly, gently, drifting on by. We're releasing it. And if it's a concern we have, a conflict we've had, a relationship challenge, we look and see that person, and we may feel the hurt. But as we breathe, we allow that hurt to dissipate. No longer to the same intensity. And we look beyond the surface of this person. We look beyond the hurt we felt, the face that we see, and we look within. And we recognize that same love that I claim as divine, that same love that I am and claim for myself. I acknowledge that love, that divine nature that Christ self within them. And even if I move back out to what they did and hear my mind claim, but they did this, with the breath, keep relaxing, keep releasing, and see within. There's a glorious light that shines, that is our divine nature. See that light of this individual. And whether they know it or not, you know their light. Now with your breath, as you feel that breath, as it moves in and fills your lungs, and you expand, know that that breath is life. That breath is love. That breath is light. And that each breath, you're expanding that life, that love, that light. It was already all there, but your breath is energizing, igniting it, expanding it. And I claim this. I claim the who that I am. I claim the divine, the one breathing me, breathing as me. I claim my divine nature. And in the claiming, I surrender into it. It permeates me. It can do nothing else but permeate me. It can't be separate, because it is who and what I am. And I settle deeper, I relax, I let go. And I see that love, that life, and that light pushing the boundaries of who I am. It's now defining me. I am love. I am life. And I am the light that illuminates all that I perceive as dark. Use your next few moments to continue to use your breath. It's an action, and you're using it to take action. The action of claiming the fullness of your divine self. And now use your breath